Welcome back to the Eric Krown Crypto channel, wishing you a happy and healthy start to this nice Wednesday morning over here. I'm not having a healthy start, but you know what? The show must go on. And we actually have a few new things we speak about today. So we got the pullback they were looking for on yesterday's based off the RSI and stochastic divergences and, well, just momentum turning down basically. And then that sort of leads us up into for today. Other than that, I wanted to once again point out that for the people who are looking for funded accounts, I put out a video yesterday with a service that I'm looking up with, Funded Futures Network, which there is a link in the description below. They have their whole process on how to verify traders, and then if you get verified, they will actually fund you up to $250,000. Other than that, yes, we have a sale going on because it's 4th of July, but it's not 4th of July. It is midsummer something here in Europe. Don't know what the fuck that means. Doesn't matter though. What does matter, however, is that you watch the videos, the promotional videos that accompany any one of these programs if you are interested in them to begin with, because they're going to explain who they're for and who they're not for so that you can understand exactly what to expect and then make the decision for yourself. Is this, relevant to me or not? Other than that, let's just jump into it right now. I suspect that today's video is going to be rather on the short side. So basically yesterday, what did we look at? We looked at hidden bearish divergence forming over here. That obviously got confirmed, and we did see a move down to the bottom side of the short-term time frame range. Here's the thing though, and what is actually rather important about this as I take off my drawing tools, Bitcoin puts in another higher low on CME. That higher low accompanied by a drive of phantom bullish divergence, and then, well, Bitcoin actually continues the march slowly but surely to the upside on declining volatility. So I still look at this as an overall consolidation, but ultimately we will have a range resolution with any sort of a closure above 20,550 or so, even on a short-term time frame in this case. So let's now follow up on the short-term time frame stochastic momentum pivots to see, where they're essentially aligned at. And what do you know? The 6-hour will actually continue with upside momentum as long as Bitcoin is closing above 20,160. We still got another just under 3 hours left to go to closure there, but so far so good at current price. Basically just sneeze away. 4-hour will also freshly turn up with any sort of a closure above 19,620. So that's actually going to be a really, really good coincidental. Is that the right word? That's the area where the invalidation happens, basically. And then if we go down to an hourly, you will very likely notice that the hourly is going to be turning up with any sort of a closure above about 20,050 or so. So in this case right here, you will notice that I've actually moved the Fibonacci retracement. Elsa's coughing in the background. She's sick because she went out and she actually spent some time abroad and, just get fucking sick and bring it back home, huh? So now I'm getting sick as well. Anyways, hope you get well soon. Anyways, in this case, I've now taken a Fibonacci retracement from the high side of the medium-term time frame range to the low side in this case, and the 0.5 is coming in where? 19,600, and that is essentially where that current higher low is coming in at the current moment. So as long as Bitcoin is closing 4-hour dildos above that region, all good for the Bulas. The opportunity remains in their hands, and the probabilities also still remain in their favor as well for the short term. And even on the higher term time frames, as we'll analyze later, that again pulls up a very obvious invalidation point, or essentially validating downside price action, downside to the bottom side of the medium term time frame range, and also the daily as well, actually, not just the short term time frame range, which is what we saw yesterday based off the range break, and that would very likely beget price action back down to about 18,600 or so, which is like the big bad critical level, because higher term time frames closing below there, and you'll very unlikely see $20,000 anytime soon if that happens. But for right now, all is good in the hood for the for the Bulas here. And again, just want to see a closure of about 20,550 or so, and I would be looking for another short-term move to the next top side of the range, which is about 21.3 to 21.5. Let's just say 21.5 basically. Other than that, we can now get into the higher term timeframes here, of which the daily will start off with, and it's all the same signals as before yesterday. It's just we're slowly seeing them come to fruition. Here we have 1, 2, 3 drives of bullish divergence. Yes, it's only showing 2, but I would actually do technically consider it 3 in this case. And based off that, I usually like to target somewhere around the 21 in this case. That would be about 22.5. That sounds interesting because that number is probably going to pop up a few other times. We also do see that daily jewel is continuing with its upside signature, which is good. I still do think that this one might not be the exact one, but whether it comes down again and aligns for like a perfect, and then gets a real move, or whether it kind of takes off from here is kind of neither here nor there for myself. Ultimately, what I'm really looking for is daily BWP to do something like this, to like really get lift off here. And that's going to be the next major momentous direction, which as of right now, as long as momentum also is pointing to the upside, statistically speaking, more likely to be get another test to the top side of the daily range in this case. On top of that, we still have this signal over here to be aware of. It hasn't gone away. In fact, it's actually matured even a little bit more. The daily stochastic momentum oscillator is bouncing off of this green horizontal bar on declining volatility. So again, it is a corrective signal, but daily stochastic momentum will remain to the upside as long as Bitcoin is closing above where? 18,800. That's even a little bit above the 18.6 pivot that I gave earlier. That goes to say, any sort of a daily closure below that region, send it down, send it very far down in this case. But again, to kind of explain the relevancy of this signal and kind of come up with some areas of interest and a timing perspective for this, well, basically we've only seen on CME this level hit here, this green horizontal bar that my cursor is currently on, 7 other times, not counting this current time, the 8th time in CME's history. And on average, it has produced a bounce of just under 31%. And the days until that next high from the cross was just over 14 days, you can see over here. So in that case, seeing as we already have the first and second, actually we have both criteria already met here, adding about 30% on to current price action would put Bitcoin at around $24,500. Now, could it be that Bitcoin gets a wick up there? I mean, I guess possible if things really get going, assuming no invalidations are met, of course. But here's the thing. This is an average, obviously, and there's going to be some variance in there. There's going to be some on the higher end, some on the lower end. This one could very well be on the lower end, which would make a little more sense to me, seeing as 24% or 25% basically puts Bitcoin at the daily range highs, which is about 23,500 or so. And, how long would we essentially expect that to be taking? About 2 weeks from the start of, I think it was like this Monday or so. So, we're still looking out until like the end of July, most likely, statistically speaking. But ultimately, this signal is valid and viable as long as this condition is met, which again is 18,800. So good on that as well. So we spoke about the daily bullish evidence. We spoke about the daily jewel. We spoke about the daily stochastic. Should we get into the hopium for right now? And again, there's very likely going to be stops along the way. 21.5 is an obvious area. Then you got 22.5, and then you got 23.5. 22.5 a little bit less so, though. Mostly 21.5 and 23.5 for the higher term timeframes, which I suspect that you're probably more interested in. Should we go over this? The 5-day? Probably not. All right, cool. So a little bit of hopium right here. And again, I want to preface this whole conversation by saying that this is, or it's not that it's necessarily hopium. It's just I don't put that much faith into things like this, although that has been at my own demise. I did not believe the pi cycle top indicator when we were looking at tops back in, the first one actually did happen, what was it, like a year ago on the summer or the spring rally, basically, March, April highs. And then obviously Bitcoin did make a new high after that, but we'd already pretty much seen the high in this case. So this is the pi cycle bottom indicator, which is actually quite interesting. The problem with this is that we don't have enough price action history, like enough time transpired, in order to really have a fully tested sort of signature here. 2 prior signals does not necessarily make a trend. 3 technically makes a trend. And even then, like, I want to see like 10 plus, for example. When I'm back testing, I want to see minimum 50 to 100 really, depending upon time frame. But in this case right here, the signal has been in the past when we see, should I explain the full thing? I'll just explain it in practice. The signal has been in the past when you see the green and yellow pass fully below the red moving averages right here. Those have marked macro bottoms, basically. So you can see this first one over here in January 2015. You can see the second one over here in December 2018, of course, and they're happening about the same posturing. Now, it did not necessarily work back in the first cycle, I would say, in 2011, but that isn't because it didn't work. It was simply because, or I would imagine it's not a fair iteration to analysize, simply because there wasn't enough time, transpired at that point. As you can see on the actual low, you got your first tick basically of the slowest moving, the longest moving average here. So in that case, it's obviously not going to work, but you can see that things, were generally being pulled in that direction and would have kind of worked in practice, I suspect. In this case over here, works perfectly. In this case over here, again, works perfectly. And the reason why I bring it up is not because it is actually given a signal just yet, but it is getting pretty damn close to giving a signal, actually. So these are very, 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 very slow moving averages. So I still suspect that, at best case scenario, we still probably have like another couple weeks, I'd imagine. But ultimately, if you are looking at something like this, relevant still within the context of the history of Bitcoin, then perhaps something interesting to be looking at, or at least, following up on. The thing is, and I'm not saying anything like new or exciting here, but basically, this environment, as far as the macro goes, is completely different than what we saw, well, basically in any other time in Bitcoin's history. I mean, we have quantitative tightening, and we have the dollar, we have massive inflation, we have the dollar going to the moon, Dixie that is, and all sorts of geopolitical turmoils. But who knows what matters most at the end of the day. It'll be interesting to follow nonetheless, and probably does produce at least a bounce somewhere around there, which kind of coincide with my analysis based off of things that I think just have more history worth testing. But in this case, definitely a fun thing that I'll be following up on, and we'll see if it works out. Definitely the last pi cycle top certainly worked out, so fair enough. I will look at it with open and fresh eyes. Other than that, I think it's time for me to probably wrap it on up. Again, Bitcoin, range is kind of shifted a little bit here today. As long as above 19.6, good for the short and medium term. Below 19.6, that's where things start to get a little bit hairy. Below 18.8 on a daily, very, 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 very bad for the Boolaws. Probably looking at, well, that's probably your next march into the 17,000s and maybe even below. But ultimately, there is a catalyst today with the FOMC minutes, not like a full-on meeting. So usually these things don't matter as much. And we'll see where kind of things come out at around that time, if there's any surprises. Other than that, I'll be signing off now. I forgot to show Bybit. Bybit has a great, but they actually do have a pretty damn good promotion going on right now. 0% on the maker orders, meaning that if you put in a limit order not filled at market, you do not pay any fee on your trade. And you get that for 30 days. Yeah, 30, I'm just reading it over here. 30 days after signing up with the affiliate link in the description below. So yeah, it's an affiliate link. You don't have to use it if you don't want to, but I believe that's the only way to get that promotion. So yeah, with that said, wishing you well as always. Take care and see you soon.